Do you have something that you like to nerd out on, and then you have something else that's your passion? Because there's certain things that you know, hey, I can go deep into this specific topic because it's so darn interesting. And then there's the other piece of you that's like, I have a deep love and passion for this. Well, that's what we're going to dive into today. Having those two different things, and then how you can use each of those two different things to move forward the world of K-12 education.
Welcome to the School Culture and Climate Show. Hosted by Steve, a passionate advocate for positive school culture and climate, together with Megan. Join us as we explore strategies, share success stories, and provide actionable tips to improve the culture and climate in your school.
Hey gang, my name is Steve Bowler, Stand Tall Steve.
Hey everyone, it's Megan Dede.
Yeah, and we're here for the School Culture and Climate Show. And again, we're excited because we have another member of the Within Our Ranks Inner Circle who's with us today. Alexandria 𝙎𝙬𝙐𝐾𝐼𝐆, straight out of Canada. We're excited to have you. Welcome to the School Culture and Climate Show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. And yes, straight from Montreal, Canada, where it's a chilly minus 10 degrees Celsius with, I think, is about minus or 0. No, I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit.
Yeah, I'm not going. Now, Megan, you're in Wyoming, so those temperatures, yeah. You're familiar with that.
That's the, you know what? When it's cold, it's cold. Minus anything, it doesn't really matter after that. It's just chilly.
It's just chilly. I'm in Jersey, and we're upset when it gets anywhere below like 32, 34. We're mad. But anyway, we're so excited to have you. This is great. Again, gang, we have Alex is a part of the Within Our Ranks Inner Circle. She is making some really great things happen in education. We're excited about this. And leading into this, we were talking about how you have two different sides of you, which is your passion and then also, the thing you nerd out on. But before we dive into that, let's give a little background of who you are, what you do in your school, in your district.
Sure. So I started out as a special education teacher in a school for students with intellectual disabilities. And I think that's where I fell in love with teaching. I had done a little bit of teaching here and there before that, and I didn't really love it. It was just something I did. But special education is where I really fell in love with teaching. And that set me really on a journey in my education career. And I've hopped around a little bit. And now I work in a larger district where I coordinate the student services department. And essentially, keeping with my love, my initial love, it's really supporting our students with special needs and making sure that we have the services and the supports in place within our schools in order to support them as students. But also we do a lot of staff training. We do a lot of training with our teachers, our support staff, and helping support our students with special needs within our schools. So that's really the journey, and in very short. In between there, I also had 4 kids, quite busy, and but my passion for education really started about 15 years ago in my first special education classroom, which was a behavior classroom. So we had 10 students with major behavioral issues. And one of the things I speak on, I tell the story of one of my students at the time, and she really taught me what it meant to be a special education teacher. So I fell in love with her and teaching in that year.
That's it. Beautiful. That's it. Yeah, you and Meg, y'all hold it down with 4 kids each.
Yeah, 4 kids. Exactly. Yeah. Busy is an understatement.
Busy is an understatement.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So you have the background, you've been in education. It's not something that you originally wanted to do, but now you have a deep passion and a love for that. And let's just zone right into what you nerd out on, because I think all of us have our nerd out things that they do. One of my things that I nerd out on is Star Trek. I am a Trekkie beyond Trekkie. Lego has a new Trek. I love Legos too, and Star Trek and Lego came out. I love that stuff. I mean, but we're talking about in education. So when we're looking at your nerd out thing, what is it that's that little piece of thing that you dive into that you love?
So I nerd out on leadership. And not just the traditional leadership, so our principals and our assistant principals and those folk, but really the leadership within our schools as well. And the journey started when I read a book called Compassionate Leadership, and it's written by Hogarth and Carter. And essentially, what their shtick is how to do hard things in a human way. And it really gave me an opportunity. It really gave me an opportunity to delve into what my leadership style was as a principal. I was in my first year of principalship, and I was sort of trying to find myself in that year. And reading that book really sort of it grounded me in the work that I was doing, because I had done some leadership classes at university, and that was super heavy on educational leadership or just leadership in general. So being a servant leader, being those different, and I was like, that doesn't really sound like me. But when I read this book, I was like, that sounds like me. And it sort of led me on a path in trying to find who I was as a leader, and in the process really nerded out on it. So I do a lot of Brene Brown. I do a lot of, there's this book I read called Lead Like a Pirate, and which was really interesting. And it just sort of helped me ground myself as a leader, but also then foster that leadership in my staff, and really taking the time to sit with my staff, mentor my staff in trying to find their own leadership within their classrooms, within their communities as well. So I think that's where the nerd out comes. So really looking for those opportunities so that I could foster leadership in other people, but also really take a deep dive and reflect on my own leadership and who I was as a school leader at the time. And it's really sort of led me to who I am now, in the position that I am now, and leading the department that I'm leading, and leading, we serve so many schools. We serve 52 schools. We
Wow.
have 120 professionals and consultants that work in our department. And so really that impact of leadership sort of bleeding into the system in our schools. I could talk for hours about this compassionate leadership and what that brought me as a leader. Um, the authors tell this story about a CEO at Campbell who would walk around with cards for the entire year, and every time he met an employee, he would write a handwritten thank you and well wishes for the holidays, and would send that at the holidays. And so everybody he had met over the course of the year would get. And I was like, I do that. I write handwritten Christmas cards to all of my staff and thank yous at the end of the year. And so it really sort of, I found myself in that moment. And so I want to share that passion, or that nerdness really with others, share it with school staffs and teachers, especially because who do these kids see every day? It's their teacher. They see them for 5 to 6 hours a day, and they have such a privilege to be in the presence of those students every day, and to be able to be significant and really massive leaders for those students can really change the culture of a school as well. So there's a lot within that I try and bring when I speak on leadership, and I do focus on teacher leaders and not necessarily traditional leaders. And whether it's teacher leaders, I've had my receptionist at my school. Oh man, I don't know how the school would have run without her. Her leadership skills and what she brought to the school was massive in terms of impact with the kids, with the families. And so really anybody within a school can be a leader, and it's the way that you foster that within your staff and the way that you share that with others can really have a significant impact on how that school moves forward and ends up thriving. So that's really where it started. And again, like, here I am rambling about it. I totally nerd out about educational leadership.
That is perfect. I really love that. I think that's just a wonderful thing. And Meg, as a classroom teacher, that's what you need. You need to make sure that you're seeing yourself that way.
And when you starting to talk about teacher leaders and helping everyone become a leader in the space that they're in, that sings to my soul, because there's so many times we have such amazing educators that, you're right, they're with those kids all the time and they have such great things to share. And so to help build that and give them that leadership space to be is absolutely amazing. I love that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I know you kind of touted a few different books and different strategies that are in there, and how you can kind of blend those all together to kind of identify, hey, this is the kind of leader I am. And I love the fact that you also said you listened to a few other, or you heard some others about leadership, you read some others, and you're like, nope, that's not me, and knowing what is you and what's not you, but then
Mm.
you can grab certain things and kind of push that forward to really help them in doing that. Now, with this area that you really zone in with school leadership, you provide this not only in your regular job, but you're also helping other schools, other organizations do
Yeah.
this.
Absolutely. So that's one of the things I talk about is educational leadership in the K to 12 classroom.
Mhm.
And again, the audience is really not necessarily those traditional leaders. It really is the people sort of on the front lines every day doing the work. And so what I'm telling them is, hey, y'all are doing this. This is what you do every day. Being in front of a classroom of kids is leading. You're
Mhm.
motivating, you're guiding. Those are all leadership skills. And so
Yeah.
really finding how you can hone those skills and how you can also leverage resources. And the joke I make, what resources? There are no resources in education, but there are, right? Like if you really take the time to reflect on what's around you, parents are an incredible resource. But how often are we saying no parents in my classroom?
Mm.
Because it just brings in a whole complexity. But the value that having other people, community organizations come to your classrooms and share and be part of your classroom is also, showing incredible leadership skills. And we have, and Meg, you've probably seen this, and Steve, in your time in schools, you have sometimes these gems of teachers who are doing so many incredible things, but no
Mm.
one knows about it. And
Yes.
you're like, you need to share that. You need to be able to share the incredible things that you're doing in your classrooms every single day. People do it every day in and day out, and no one knows about it. So
Yeah.
like share that. I
Yeah.
think there's
You
so
know,
much value.
it's really interesting. It's almost like you're giving them permission
Yes.
to showcase the fact that they're a
Hmm.
leader. And here's the thing: there are so many people that are out there that says, "Teachers, you are leaders," and teachers hear it like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." But it's a different thing when you're saying, "No, this right here, that's a leadership act. This right here, that's." And
Yeah,
matter of fact, here's more ideas of what you can do.
Mhm.
Here's another idea
exactly.
of what you can do. Here's another way that you can share that out a little
Exactly.
bit more, because I know sometimes you get in your classroom, you get in your department, you shut your door, and you're just grinding, and they don't have the realization that, you know what, yes, I am a leader. These are the opportunities for me to be able to do these things. And that's how that really happens. And you're able to help them do that. And it's nice that you're saying, look, I'm working at the classroom level here. I
Yeah.
want the teachers to know this. Yes, we know we have our administrators and things like that who will hear you and see you to
Hmm.
bring you into them. But that's what that is. And I
Absolutely.
love that you're doing that. Hey, those of you that are listening, or those of you that are watching, please, in the comments, please let us know what actions, what things are you seeing in your schools, in your classrooms, that really showcase that teacher leader, those teacher leaders. And make sure you like, follow, and subscribe what we got going on here, gang. So that's perfect. That's perfect. So let's slide over to the passion side. All right. So we nerded out on the leadership side. Let's slide over to the passion side. And here's the thing. All right, gang. I remember when you and I were talking through Within Our Ranks, and how this passion side started coming out, and your whole demeanor, everything shifted for you
Yeah.
uh, greatly. So I'm excited to really share, talk a little bit about what that is as it relates to educators in the world of K-12 education.
Yeah. So I might actually get emotional about this because in that first year as a principal, I started out, you have high hopes and you think you know what you're doing, and they chose me to be in this school, and I happened to be in a school that was in a lower socioeconomic area. We had some families that were going through some very difficult circumstances. We had kids going through very difficult circumstances, and the district I work in works really hard on things like trauma informed pedagogy and creating spaces for students to thrive despite whatever they're going through. But as I was walking through this year, I realized trauma informed pedagogy really doesn't take into account the staff members who are working with these kids day in and day out. And there were certain incidents over the course of that first year as the principal where I would be receiving teachers who had had a really difficult day witnessing the trauma or dysregulation in their students and didn't know where to put that. And in the talk that I do, I tell the story about one of my kindergarten teachers, and I remember her walking into my office, sitting down and literally melting into a puddle. Her body melted, she was crying. And I remember having this feeling of like, I just needed to hold all of that. As the principal, I'm supposed to be the leader here. And this was a teacher who had close to 30 years of teaching experience. So this wasn't a new teacher who didn't know what she was doing. And I thought, I can't do this. I can't be the holder of this pain for not just this teacher, but then every other teacher I was working with, and then every other student, and then all of the families. There was no way that I could do that. And I started to think about how I could help. And because it was very helpless, I couldn't hold all of her pain. And as she walked away, my thought was, oh, I helped, I listened. And then as I thought about it, I was like, I didn't help. All I did was multiply the pain, because now she was still feeling that pain, and now I was feeling the pain. And so I started on this journey on how I could help support staff members and schools who were experiencing a lot of trauma. And I connected with a psychoanalyst that our district was consulting with, and she put words to what I was feeling. And so she talked about things like compassion fatigue. She talked about things like vicarious trauma or secondary trauma. She talked about how that could impact in terms of things like burnout, in terms of things like staff wellness. And I was like, the bells kept ringing every time she would sort of think. I was like, yeah, that's what's happening here. So then the thought turned to what can I do about it? So I looked into some different training opportunities, and one came across my email list where it was meant for frontline workers, so people like paramedics, nurses, social workers. And I thought, let me see what they have to say. And the title of that training was Vicarious Resilience. And I was like, that sounds like what my staff needs. And so I did it. And I was in a room with paramedics and nurses and social workers, and I was the only person from education in that room. And I thought that was interesting at first, because they wondered why I was there. And so I didn't say much in the beginning. They asked me, "Why are you here?" And I thought, I wanted to learn stuff. And as they were talking, things were sort of hitting home. And I was like, teachers feel that too. Teachers experience that too. This sounds like what's happening in my school now. And so this training on building vicarious resilience meant for frontline workers, people who are going to major emergencies like a car crash or a burning home, or the nurses in ERs who are receiving those people. That training resonated with what I was seeing in my school. And I thought to myself, this is what teachers need. This is what teachers need to hear, in terms of, number one, validating that what they're receiving on a day-to-day basis has a name. It has a space in education. It is not foreign. It is not because you don't know what you're doing or because you're not competent enough. There is no way that we can survive, and I'm using survive sort of in larger terms, the barrage of stories that we hear on a day-to-day basis and not expect that to affect us. And so paramedics and nurses and psychologists and social workers, they have it built within their systems to support staff members and to support those people. But we in education don't support our people who are living these things every day, because it's not acknowledged, or it's not understood in the way that it's understood as it's understood that a paramedic is going to witness some very traumatic things, but it's not necessarily understood in education that teachers and school staffs will see and witness trauma every day as well. So that's where that sort of passion was sparked. And again, here I am rambling about it. But so I took those ideas that I learned on how to support frontline workers and adapted them to supporting our school staffs in recognizing the signs of compassion fatigue, and recognizing the early signs of burnout, and recognizing those things. So that's the first step. But then also, what can we do to build resilience within our people individually, but also as a school, as a classroom, as a system, how we can build resilience within our people so that they can continue to do the work. They're doing incredible work. Our educators, man, they do incredible work every day, and we want to make sure to nurture that. So the idea of nurturing the nurturer is super important when we're talking
Mm.
about our teachers. So
Wow.
passion.
Yeah. Oh, it's hugely. Now, I'm going to pause. Megan, I'm going to let you go because as a classroom teacher, hearing this and knowing what it is that she works on, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
When you talk about, like, you're gonna get a little emotional about that, I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, to have someone come in and give you space for the things that are happening in your classroom or the parents that you're dealing with, or, I just had a teacher text me the last day of break, and this parent just had a lot to say. She had a lot to say about things that was nothing to do with what that teacher had done in her classroom, and she had to let loose. And then now I'm trying to help this teacher say, it's not all your fault, this is where it's at. But now she started her break with this
Yeah.
heaviness, and being aware of what that is, and a space for that is, that's amazing work that you're doing with schools and leaders and teachers. I for one think that it is needed right now. It is
No,
needed.
totally. And my question goes to, because not only is it that you're helping them realize
Mhm.
what this is, okay? Especially nowadays, everybody says kids are different. They are.
Mhm.
They are. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
They are different. Families are different. Situations are different. Period. So first is identifying that this is a
Yeah.
thing, and then I go to the question of, is it a matter of, are you helping them cope with it? Are you helping them move through it? Are you helping them survive it? Are you helping them complete it? Help me understand. I mean, because
Sure.
what's happening? Where are we going? Yeah,
So
give me
you're
some
right.
more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the first part is there's a self test. So I adapted the self test that was made for those frontline workers, and I adapt it to our educators. So essentially, what we're trying to identify is three things. So we're trying to look out for compassion fatigue. We're looking out for risk of burnout, and then we're looking at sort of the more severe sort of, are you at risk of actually harming yourself?
Mm,
Because let's be honest, we have teachers who leave education at an alarming rate because it is just too much for them to handle. So it sort of goes through those extremes. But then it's about, what do we build? And even in my slide deck, and I remember sharing this slide deck with
mm,
you, and you got it right away. And essentially, what I'm doing is I'm sort of building a wall of resilience. And so
Mm.
each step we talk about things like co-care, because we've all had it. We've all had those self-care workshops, those
mhm,
wellness workshops. We've all
Yeah.
done that. We could
mhm,
probably name all of the, let's just breathe, guys. Like, no.
mhm. Close your eyes. All
Yeah,
right.
this
No.
isn't helping.
No, exactly. And so we talk about sort of, so I talk about things like co-care. I talk about things like building vicarious resilience, because we're not changing the kids. These are the kids that we come. We're not
Yes.
Right?
changing them.
Especially if you're in a public school, they are
Yeah,
sending the best they
exactly.
got. They're not
Yep.
keeping
Exactly.
the good ones somewhere else. This is
Exactly.
all they got. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I talk about a peer support group and how you can structure that. I talk about critical incident debriefing, because some
Mhm.
really scary things happen in our classroom sometimes. And then we go in the next day and just go about our day like nothing
Like nothing
happened.
All right. I got
happened.
to pause. All
Yes.
right. We got to pause. We got to pause. Megan and I, we just talked about this. We had an episode titled "The Elephant in the Room,"
Mhm.
Mm,
and the way we were talking about it is not so much the traumatic things that are happening in the classroom, but the traumatic things that are happening in the world
yeah.
that are being brought into
Hmm.
there. So you're right. And it's almost like administrators and other educators, we praise each other to
Yeah.
suppress it and
Yes.
keep
Handle it.
going.
A
Yes.
100%.
Yeah,
A
it's like,
hundred
oh,
percent.
girl, you came in and you still taught those kids, got them on track. No, something
No.
traumatic just happened.
Yeah.
Oh, girl,
Exactly.
you're on point here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's one of the other trainings that I did. I did a critical incident debriefing training that really walks through the steps. And so I do a quick abbreviated version of that,
Mhm.
adapted to educators. They say within 72 hours you should have a multidisciplinary meeting where, and I was like, oh, we don't, who has time for that, right? As educators.
Yeah. All right.
Right.
That's why we don't have time. But
Yeah.
there's a way to adapt the idea of
Okay.
critical incident debriefing so that it's
Mm.
short, but it addresses what we're trying to address, and it doesn't just hide that elephant in the room, because you're not, it's
Mm.
there. You're not
Yeah,
hiding it. This is
yeah.
happening.
This is
So
happening over there. That big, huge purple and green
yeah,
giant,
exactly.
big
Wah,
tusk
wah.
elephant with a plaid mini skirt on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
I was
Can
gonna
we
go for
address this?
tutu, but okay.
I'm going same thing. It's
Yeah.
close.
But
Yeah.
and then I do end, so this is heavy stuff, right? Like the idea, this topic is heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to address that in 1 hour or even a 2 hour or 3 hour session,
Mm,
you're not addressing it. So
mm,
they're meant to be sort
Mhm.
of quick. So I also end with two things: building a safety plan for yourself. So just like you would for a patient or a student who's having going through a rough time, you build a safety plan. If the
mm,
child does this, you do this. Well, build one of those for yourself. If you're
mm,
feeling this way, this is what you're going to do. So then in the moment when you're in sort of fight or flight mode, then you don't have to think about it, because when this happens, I do this.
To do this.
And the last thing that I do is I read a gratitude letter. I read a gratitude letter to a student who really brought me to the edge as a leader in terms of the complexity of his situation. And I write him and his family a gratitude letter of what his situation and his crisis situation brought me in terms of my own journey in building my own resilience, but also building my leadership and helping support my staff members. And so that's how I end. I end with a
Mm.
gratitude letter. So we don't end with the heaviness. We can end with these critical incidences that we're experiencing, this trauma or secondary trauma that we're experiencing, can also 100% bring us to a place that we can be better educators, we can be better leaders, we can be better human beings.
mm, mhm,
So I
mhm.
also end with that. So
That's
not too
wonderful.
heavy.
No, hey, you got to know how it works with the presentation skills and things such as that. Hey, one of the things I can say it definitely is, back in the day, this was all called soft skills,
Yeah.
or so.
Mhm.
It's not soft. This is the
No.
heaviness. This is
Yeah.
beyond soft. This is the heaviness. These are
Mm.
very hard things that educators are living with and dealing with on a regular basis. And to have someone like yourself who can come make them aware, because half of it is just being aware that
Uh,
it is,
yes.
recognizing it.
Yep.
Once you've
Giving it a
recognized
name.
it, giving it a
Yeah.
name, recognizing it, and then from there also providing examples of it. And then from
Yes.
there going so far to say, here's some strategic, specific things that you can start to do to start making it better. That is key.
Yes.
That is we can keep some people in education just doing this.
Absolutely. We're losing some good people. And I
Mm,
wish we could find a way to not, because who loses out when we do? It's our kids. Our
Yeah.
kids
yeah.
lose out when we lose those good people.
Your kids lose out, the community loses out. And
Yep.
even if you have some teachers, I mean, think about yourself when you were first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh year teacher, right? And knowing that if you were able to stick it out,
Mm,
what an amazing educator they would be eventually. And they're
absolutely.
rolling out before they can even get to that point.
Right.
Absolutely.
And if you
Absolutely.
can get these skills and things happening on an earlier end. So I'm saying this to all the administrators that are out there. Do this, get Alex for your new teacher trainings, get Alex for your PD, get Alex for your summertime admin training so that they can come in and learn about this and start providing the necessary skills and address them so that you can keep these people in your schools, that they can make it because it's the right thing to do. That's it.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. Hey, well, I have two more questions. I got two more
Sure.
questions for you. I'm going to give you the last question first, and then I'll give you the question before the last question. So the last question is basically, how do we get a hold of you? How do we get a hold of you? How
Yeah.
do we find you more? But the question before the last question, and you talked about two different things. You talked about your nerd out, you talked about your passion.
Yeah.
What is something for each of those areas? One thing with the nerd out that you want our audiences to walk away with, and one thing with your passion that you want your audience to walk away with.
Sure. So for educational leadership, I think I mentioned it earlier. Everyone can be a leader, and whether you're a smaller impact leader or a huge impact leader, everyone can be a leader in education. And it's just about finding and honing in on those skills, but leveraging those tools, the strategies, the people that are around you that can help your journey as a leader in education. And in terms of my passion, the thing that I want to leave the audience with and leave people with, whether it's this podcast or whether it's when I speak, I want people to feel seen. I want people to feel heard, and I want them to know that they're not alone. And, it sometimes feels really lonely when you're living those really tough days and those really tough things, but there's a whole community of people who hear and understand you and education and the impacts that going in every day and being the good soldier, that impact, what that impact can be on you as a teacher and a person.
That's it. Perfect. I love it. I love
Nice.
it. All right. Well, the last question is, how do we get a hold of you? How do educators get more of you?
Sure. So the easiest way would be by email or on my LinkedIn. So my email is @, and I will spell that out, 83 at Gmail. So it's ALEXDESBIENS 83 at gmail.com. And then my LinkedIn, Alexandria 𝙎𝙐𝙐𝙬𝙗. I knocked that Leighton off. But Alexandria 𝙎𝙎𝙐𝙐𝙬𝙗, you can reach me there, and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about how I can help your teachers, your school, your district in those two areas in educational leadership. But again, my passion in helping support the nurturing people that are in our schools every day.
That's it. That's it. And if you can't get a hold that way, you can always go to Within Our Ranks. Go to info@withinourranks.com, and you can reach out. We can make sure that there's that connection. We'll put them all into the show notes. All right.
Absolutely.
So real quick, Megan, talk about Within Our Ranks, and then we'll wrap this up.
Yes. Listen, so when you're bringing in Alex for your PD or that new teacher, any of those things, you're going to know that you're going to get a great speaker because Alex spent time with us, Steve and myself were within our ranks. Alex, you have been with us through the retreat, the 3-day retreat, the intensive training. But then not only that, she's in our inner circle. So she's learning all of those deep pieces of how to be the best speaker and provide those strategies, those ideas in a way that educators deserve. So if you want to know more about Within Our Ranks, make sure you check out withinourranks.com and look at our community, check out our retreats, and see if it's something that it's fit for you.
All right. That's it, gang. That's it. Withinourranks.com. Hey, if you found value in this, please tell us in the chat about the strategies that you heard, the things that you like. Give us some feedback. Give us some connection. And don't forget, if you like this overall, please like, follow, and subscribe for the School Culture and Climate Show. All right, I'm Stand Tall Steve. We're here with Megan Deedy. And thank you, Alex. We appreciate it so
My
much.
pleasure. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Alex.
Thanks.